All right, let's do it. Welcome into the show. You're watching the San Francisco 49ers Report. We're live right here on Chat Sports. It is a beautiful Wednesday, February 12th. My name is Chase Sr., and no matter where you are or how you're tuned in, thank you as always for making today's show a part of your day. A lot to get into here entering this pivotal and huge offseason for this ball club. I put together my perfect Niners free agency plan. Big decisions are coming for San Francisco. Going to take a look at my top Niners draft targets, and we're going to round out with the mailbag. So get those questions in starting right now. Use the hashtag 49ers or send in a super chat. And of course, the topic of the day and the topic over the last few days has been the future of wide receiver Deebo Samuel. This is also the poll question in the chat right now, and I'm looking at the results. Should the Niners get rid of Deebo? 75% yes, 25% no, and so I ask you to answer that in the comment section as well. Should the Niners get rid of Deebo? Y for yes, K for keep. Let me know. I'm saying QXS Scott, saying keep him. Ken Dowsland says yes, get rid of him. Fans are really going back and forth on this subject matter. Now, just moments ago, Tim Kawakami, longtime Bay Area sports reporter, reporting that both sides, the Niners, Deebo and his camp, are preparing to move on for Deebo to not be a Niner this upcoming season. Interesting stuff. Just put up a YouTube short on that, put out a video on my X page, Instagram page, and of course we'll continue to talk about that all throughout the live show as well. Be sure to get those questions in. If you want to hop on board and join our mailbag, just use the hashtag 49ers or send in a super chat. Already nearly 200 people watching live. Appreciate everybody who has those notifications on. That means that you hit that bell icon. Therefore, anytime we push out a show, anytime we go live, you're notified. That means that you're a real one. And as you venture in here, please make sure you hit that thumbs up icon and you like the video. More likes that we get, the more people who find the stream, the more it helps us out, the more fun that we'll have, because we always want more people to watch the program here. So almost 200 people watching live. I need everybody to hit that thumbs up icon and like the video. I gave you the rundown for what we're going to get into on the show. Going to start off with my perfect Niners free agency plan. And really, this is external free agents who I think the Niners should sign once free agency gets underway in March. So we're going to start with that. Whole lot more to get to, and the official show starts now. So continue to hang out here with us, and let's talk some Niners. Hey there, welcome into the show. You're watching the San Francisco 49ers Report. My name is Chase Sr. No matter where you are or how you're tuned in, thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day. And coming up, I put together my perfect Niners free agency plan. The players who I think San Francisco needs to sign from other teams to add to their roster going into 2025. And these moves, I believe, could propel the Niners to get back to being in Super Bowl contention. Before we take a look at that plan, make sure you hit that subscribe button for the most elite Niners offseason coverage. I have you covered with shows every single day year-round. That's why we're approaching 160,000 subscribers, so join the movement and lock us in. Perfect free agency plan. Step number one, as I've talked about for years at this point, especially during this offseason, the Niners have to get better along the offensive line and the defensive line as well. And we'll talk about the defensive trenches. But for this point, I think San Francisco really needs to sign center Drew Dahlman. And when you talk about improving the offensive line, I think it starts at the center position, especially in Kyle Shanahan's offense, where you need a top-tier center. And in this Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch regime, the Niners have been willing to pay centers good coin. They signed Weston Richburg back several years ago to a 5-year, $47.5 million contract. They inked Alex Mack after Richburg retired to a 3-year, $14.8 million deal. They tried to get cheap and creative on the cap by elevating Jake Brendel, who clearly over time has proven to be the journeyman center that he was when he was a backup for this team. and I just don't think he's a starting caliber center for a team with Super Bowl aspirations. The anchor isn't strong enough, committed a lot of penalties. When he has to go up against upper echelon interior defensive linemen, he gets pushed into the lap of Brock Purdy. In 2024, he was one of the lowest graded centers in all of football. And so Drew Dahlman is a player who, when I evaluate him, is along the likes of a Weston Richburg or an Alex Mack, and that's being one of the top centers in the NFL. And when you're the center of Kyle Shanahan's offense, sometimes you're having to handle protections, and it starts with you in the run game. You're going to have to get out in space on those pull blocks. You have a lot of duties at that center position, and then scheme-wise, you're just asked to do a lot. And I think that Dahlman would be able to pass that test and pass those things with flying colors. He's an athletic, mobile, cerebral center. He's an elite run blocker, and I think the Niners have to get back to running the football at a more efficient and consistent clip. Last year they couldn't do that because of injuries, but also because the offensive line was getting pushed around. Dahlman is also good in pass pro. He fits the scheme. He's a young player. Oftentimes when you sign cats in free agency, they trend toward being a little bit older. It's not the case with Dahlman. 26, about to enter his prime. He could be a member of this football team and a focal point of it for the foreseeable future. The Falcons last year had Zach Robinson as their offensive coordinator. He was under Sean McVay prior to going to Atlanta, and so Dahlman would be a really good scheme fit. He's so smart. He went to Stanford, NorCal guy, grew up in Salinas, California. His dad, Chris, played for the Niners and was a good player for San Francisco. So you can check off the boxes of him being a scheme fit and a good player. And then, of course, always fun for fans, they can root for the hometown kid who has Niners ties as well within the family. Dahlman in 2024, overall Pro Football Focus grade of 78.8. One of the higher grades among all centers in the NFL. Pass blocking grade of 66.6. I think those numbers could get a little bit better, but an elite run blocking grade at 79.8. Only gave up 2 sacks, 1 hit, and 10 pressures of Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix. As part of the second portion of my perfect free agency plan, I want to see the Niners bring back defensive tackle DJ Jones. Robert Saleh is back. Jones played and has familiarity playing for Robert Saleh. You know that Saleh, scheme-wise, is going to run that wide 9. And really, over the last couple of years, the Niners have missed a run-stuffing defensive tackle. And they haven't had, in general, good enough defensive tackle play. DJ Jones can help you in that category. It's really burned this defense not having a player like him, especially against the run. He was number 2 in run-stop win rate among defensive tackles in 2024. I think that familiarity with the scheme, him coming back here, Niners know what to expect after a nice 2021 season in which he really emerged as a former late-round pick. He got a bag from the Denver Broncos. Good for him. It's a 3-year, $30 million contract, got about $10 million per season. He certainly earned that. I don't think he's going to get that going into the offseason. And that's good for San Francisco because that means that they would be able to afford him and bring him back. Of course, at this point, starting to get a little bit older, but you're not asking him to be an every down defensive tackle. You're asking him to occasionally push the pocket, get that interior pass rush, and stop the run. And stopping the run is one of DJ Jones' specialties. Also pretty athletic at 6 feet, 305 pounds. Step number 3. According to Matt Barrows of The Athletic, he is reporting that Dre Greenlaw and Talanoa Hufanga are likely to not return to San Francisco. He came through with that report on Wednesday. And so if Greenlaw leaves, you still have remaining questions at that linebacker spot. And porous linebacker play really hurt this Niners defense in 2024. You'll still have Fred Warner, but outside of Fred Warner, 2/3 of your linebacking unit, you go into 2025 with question marks around them, unless you sign linebacker Jamion Sherwood. Sherwood is a smaller, speedy, playmaking linebacker, and he's a little bit lighter, has a defensive back background, but that leads to him being a really unique player where he has really good range, really good feel and instincts, and he can make plays all over the yard. And, of course, a player who began to flourish under Robert Saleh and probably would like to follow Saleh to the Bay Area, because if he gets paid and the production follows, it's a good situation for him. He was top 40 among all linebackers in overall Pro Football Focus grade, pass rush grade, run defense grade, and coverage grade. He also had 109 solo tackles, fourth among all linebackers. And so despite his lack of size, he's about 216 pounds or so, he's a playmaker. And if the Niners can bring back Dre Greenlaw, you know what it would remind me of? The linebacking trio that we saw a few years ago, which I think we took for granted a little bit. The linebacking trio of Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, and Azeez Al-Shaair. Jamien Sherwood is an Azeez Al-Shaair type of player. And last year, partially under Saleh before he got fired, he had a career year. 158 total tackles, 2 sacks, 10 TFLs, good against the run. And at 216 pounds, yeah, he's not as big as a player like Fred Warner. Doesn't stop him from putting his hat on the football and finding the ball carrier. So with that, I ask you this. What is the biggest need for the 49ers in free agency? I want you to sound off. Let me know down in the comment section. If you're like me, you're going to say offensive line and or defensive line. Our sponsor for today's Niners Report, our friends at Prize Picks, the best daily fantasy sports app in the game and the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. So run your game all season long on Prize Picks. All-Star Weekend is almost here. Prize Picks is the best place to win cash while watching your favorite players during the game and the Saturday night events like the 3-point contest. And winning 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks, how could you say no to that? What I love about Prize Picks too, the variety of picks. For instance, we can hop in our cricket bag here. Sri Lanka. Yeah, you can't be scared. Other sports available as well, including Connor McDavid going more than 3 shots on goal. So get $50 when you play $5. prizepicks.com/CLNS. We'll put that link down below in the comment section and in the description of today's San Francisco 49ers report. We move forward with my perfect Niners free agency plan. And obviously, all of these things are not going to happen. But if San Francisco can check off about 3/5 of my 5-step plan, I think that's damn successful. And as part of this, bring back DJ Reed. You drafted him. You kind of messed up with your roster mismanagement. Tried to get creative with finding a way to keep him, despite him dealing with some injuries at the time. He goes to Seattle. He plays well. And then he uses that time with Seattle to sign that deal with the New York Jets. And he, too, played well under Robert Saleh. This is another player who flourished under his watch. And look at how much the Philadelphia Eagles were able to take a leap forward with the better defensive coordinator from 2023 to 2024 under Vic Fangio. I think the Niners can do the same under Robert Saleh, because better coaching leads to better performance. You put players into a position to succeed. You put them in a position to make plays. You have them feel a lot more comfortable. The game starts to slow down. And when you are coaching that unit to a better degree than Nick Sorensen, that's going to be visual to all of us, because you're not making all of these dumb decisions. You're not missing tackles. You don't have blown assignments. And you're just not a poorly coached unit. And with the player like DJ Reed, I really like his positional versatility. He could play inside or outside. That really complements the corners that you already have on this team with Amador Lenore and Renardo Green, who are the future of that cornerback position for San Francisco. Both young players. Of course, Lenore signed that contract extension. And for Green, the Niners drafted him in the second round in 2024. Reed this past year, overall PFF grade of 70.1. Coverage grade, 70.1. Pass rush grade, 71.8. Run defense grade, 71.8. This is a corner who can really do it all and brings the Niners something that they covet. That's physicality. And he had 7 pass breakups as well. And then lastly, on that back end, you really want to shore things up, sign safety Javon Holland. Now, DJ Reed and Javon Holland are 2 of the better players at their position going into free agency. And the same could be said for Sherwood and Drew Dahlman. Out of all these players, I expect the Niners to invest in Drew Dahlman the most. I think that's the most realistic. For Holland, though, he's not like Sherwood and Reed, where he's coming off an awesome year. He's actually coming off a disappointing 2024 season, and so his value may have been diminished just a little bit. A Pro Bowl snub, in my opinion, following the 2023 season. Then he struggled a little bit in 2024, but I think that Saleh can bring his game to another level. He's a playmaking safety on the back end, who I've been a big fan of, even in the pre-draft process, and I think his best football is ahead of him. Shoot, he's still in his mid-20s. And so I think he's only rounding into form, and I think that Dolphins defense, they weren't that great. And so I think with Holland coming to a place like San Francisco under Saleh, Saleh can maximize a player like this and really help him turn the corner. In 2024, Holland, 15 games played, 15 starts, 62 tackles, a sack, 4 pass breakups, not bad at that safety spot, and 1 forced fumble. Of course, your evaluation of him and whether or not you want to bring him in depends on your evaluation of Jair Brown. You took Jair Brown in the 3rd round 2 years ago. If you think that he can be a player alongside Malik Mustafa, you don't sign Holland. If you don't like Jair Brown, and that's up to Saleh, he wasn't a part of the defensive coaching staff that drafted Brown, then you probably go after a player like Holland potentially. So my final thoughts here, if the Niners do those things as part of that 5-step free agency plan, you can address left guard and right tackle in the draft. You could try to bring back Dre Greenlaw, even though Matt Barrows is reporting he doesn't think he's going to come back. You get Purdy locked up early so you know what your financial situation is going into free agency. At the other positions that you need to address, you add quality depth. You crush the NFL draft. And what did the Eagles do after a disappointing 2023? Crushed the draft, crushed free agency. They put together the most loaded roster in the NFL, and they embarrassed the Kansas City Chiefs. They had existing talent on their team carrying over into 2024. Doesn't that sound familiar with San Francisco if they go about free agency and the draft in the right way? And I think that they can because I have confidence in this organization. So grade that Niners free agency plan that I just gave you, A, B, C, D, or F. Share your truest thoughts with me down in the comment section. And if you want to rip me, that's fine too. This is America. Segment number 1 is down. We're going to move forward to segment number 2. America. F yeah. 321 people watching live. Only 79 likes. Come on now. Hit that thumbs up icon and like the video. I'm looking at the comment section right now. Shout out to the recent commenter club. Mr. Black Ice, Wet Noodle, Jonathan Reese, Ernesto, Tyson, Matt, Tristan, D. Lou, Charlie Katzeman. I see all of you. And I'm seeing a lot of you giving me A's and B's in the comment section. I appreciate that. Let me see. That was supposed to be a player card. I'll just read it off, though. Yeah. Good catch, though. Let me see where that is. Okay. Yeah, I'll just read that off. All right, segment number 2 coming up. Big moves in store for San Francisco. We're going to talk about the series of big decisions that the Niners have awaiting in front of them coming up here this offseason. So let's get into it. This is the San Francisco 49ers Report. I'm Chase Sr. Thanks for hanging out here with us. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for videos every single day right here on the channel on the Niners. Coming up, big moves in store for this ball club. San Francisco has a series of big decisions that they're going to need to make this offseason, and I'm going to talk about the biggest decisions that John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan are already thinking about right now. Before we do that, today's poll question is this: will the Niners be back in the playoffs next year? Type P for playoffs, type M for miss. Sound off with what you think down below in the comment section. The first order of business for the Niners: signing Brock Purdy to a contract extension. Where you don't want to be in the National Football League, is quarterback purgatory or have quarterback questions. Brock Purdy has played at a very elite level throughout much of his Niners tenure. There certainly were some struggles during the 2024 season, but I think moving forward, he can be the player more so that we saw in 2023 when he was top 5 in MVP voting, and in 2022 when in both of those years he led the Niners as the team's starting quarterback to an NFC Championship game, and of course in 2023 a few plays away from winning the Super Bowl. Diana Rossini reporting from the Super Bowl when we were down there in New Orleans that contract negotiations have started. Both sides want a new deal soon. Jed York also said recently when there was that Super Bowl committee at Levi Stadium to celebrate the Super Bowl coming to Santa Clara for this upcoming season for Super Bowl 60, that we want Brock to be with the Niners for a very long time. And as we know, we're talking about this because Purdy is entering the final year of his contract. And it's pretty telling. When the owner says we want you, and the owner says we want to pay this guy, oftentimes you're going to get paid. If the general manager, the CEO, the COO of your company is talking about you and they say, yeah, we want Chase Sr. around for a long time, I'd feel pretty damn good about myself. Here's a quote from Jed York on Purdy. I know we want Brock to be here for a long time. We'll do everything we can to make that stuff work. Brock is just a tremendous human being. I'm looking forward to a long-term partnership. So that's pretty notable right there that the owner of the football team who signs the checks is saying that about Purdy. And Purdy since 2022, part of the reason why York is confident in him, why he likes him, he's won a lot. Made it to 2 straight NFC Championship games during his rookie campaign and sophomore season. Went to the Super Bowl in 2023. He's been 23-13 as a starter going into 2025. In 2023, he was top 5 in MVP voting. It's pretty incredible how his stock can plummet so much according to some people and in the eyes of some from 2023 to 2024, when in 2023, he was one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the game and was top 5 in MVP voting. And he's also had really good production. 64 touchdowns, 27 picks. Is he a quarterback who's going to be able to carry his team to the Super Bowl? No, I think he needs some help around him. But even Patrick Mahomes looked human against the Philadelphia Eagles because he had no offensive line protection in front of him. Same can be said for Brock Purdy in 2024 when his offensive line didn't do him any favors either. Step number 2, the Niners have to fix the offensive line. Left guard, center, right tackle have to be upgraded. And so that plays into the big decisions that are looming for this ball club here going into this offseason. The Niners cannot see and watch what the Philadelphia Eagles did against the Kansas City Chiefs in Super Bowl 59 and say, we're not going to put an emphasis on improving the offensive line. If that Eagles defensive line matched up against this current iteration of the Niners offensive line from 2024, Brock Purdy would be running for his life. And so one path to fix the offensive line that I think would do wonders for this team, signed center Drew Dahlman in free agency. Best center among this free agency group. Draft a player like Armand Membu at number 11 out of Mizzou. I think that he can be a star right tackle. He can also play guard. I think he's a plug-and-play guy from the jump. So if you sign Dahlman and you draft a player like Membu or Will Campbell or Kelvin Banks and you plug him in there at right tackle, your offensive line is already drastically improved. Then you have Trent Williams at left tackle. You'll figure out left guard, Dahlman center, Dominic Pooney at right guard, and a better player than Colton McKivitz at right tackle. And then you target other offensive linemen day 2, day 3 to continue to bulk up that unit. Sticking in the trenches, the 49ers have to build up the defensive line. Defensive tackle and edge rusher are huge needs. Again, I'm going to go back to what the Philadelphia Eagles did and what they looked like. Howie Roseman and the Eagles stacked up along the offensive line and the defensive line. This has really been an organizational philosophy for Philadelphia since the turn of the century and after they hired Andy Reid in 1999. Andy Reid has always built from inside out Whereas the Niners under Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have kind of built outside in. They've paid some defensive linemen, but they haven't invested into the offensive line enough. And you think about how Philadelphia played against Kansas City. They owned Kansas City with their offensive line. And then their defensive line was straight up dominant. I want to see the ripple effect of Philadelphia winning that Super Bowl carry over to a team like the Niners. They have skill position players. Kyle Shanahan's going to be able to make the offense work. But it's not going to be as successful, and the Niners aren't going to be as successful if they're not better at the point of attack. Sometimes you have to watch the game of football from the sideline. Who's getting a better push with their offensive line and defensive line? And in the Super Bowl, it didn't matter Patrick Mahomes was the quarterback. The Eagles were dominant up front, and the Niners have to follow suit, especially if they figure to get past Philadelphia in a playoff game. Now, I know I just mentioned taking a player like Armand Membu or another offensive tackle at number 11. A player who's really starting to intrigue me is Walter Nolan, the Ole Miss defensive tackle, and he's starting to climb up draft boards a little bit. I'd be fine, as I mentioned on X, with the Niners taking him with the 11th overall pick. Quick burst, twitch, and get off from that defensive tackle spot. Pass rushing skill from the interior, 6.5 sacks in 2024 with 25 hurries. He was an All-American. He's not just a pass rushing defensive tackle. He had a 91.6 Pro Football Focus run defense grade. He's violent, physical, and fast. And he had a great Senior Bowl showing, which is resulting in him climbing up draft boards. And going back to that point about the Eagles, after seeing how Philadelphia destroyed the Chiefs' offensive line, led by Jalen Carter, Milton Williams, Moro Ajomo, Jordan Davis, from the interior alone. It's not even talking about Josh Sweat, who had 2.5 sacks, or Nolan Smith, or Jalen Hunt. I want to see the Niners get a game changer at defensive tackle. They've sorely missed DeForest Buckner ever since they traded him away. Defensive tackle, huge need this offseason. Now, if you do go offensive line in round 1, this is a very deep defensive tackle class. So if you don't get a player like Walter Nolan in the first round, you can get a really good defensive tackle in the second round. Before we continue to push forward on today's show, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. This is your home for the best Niners offseason coverage. So bang, bang, Niner gang, all the way down to you hitting that subscribe button. Our sponsor for today's show, our friends at Z-Biotics, an absolutely game-changing product, and you can see for yourself and get 15% off by going to zbiotics.com/chatsports and scanning this QR code right here to my left. You're probably wondering, Chase, what is Z-Biotics? Let me break it down for you. Have you ever skipped a workout because of drinks the night before? Yeah, I've been there. If you're committed to your healthier routine this year, you need Z-Biotics pre-alcohol. We all have busy lives these days, can't afford to waste a day stuck on the couch because of a few drinks the night before. Well, Z-Biotics pre-alcohol is the answer we've all been looking for. Let's face it, after a night with drinks, I don't bounce back the next day like I used to. I got to make a choice. I can either have a great day or a great night. That is until I found Z-Biotics pre-alcohol. It is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic, invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to drink this probiotic before drinking alcohol. Drink responsibly and get a good night's sleep to feel your best tomorrow. So go to zbiotics.com/chatsports. Scan the QR code on your screen right now. I've taken this before watch parties so that next day I am feeling great and I can do my shows to the best and fullest of my capabilities. You can also sign up for a subscription using our code so that you can stay prepared no matter the time or the occasion. Z-Biotics is backed with the 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. 50% off zbiotics.com/chatsports. Use the code chatsports. Big decisions number 4 for the Niners. Figure out what to do with Debo Samuel. Big report from Tim Kawakami, longtime Bay Area sports reporter, on Wednesday, February 12th, when he said Debo and his camp and the 49ers are both advancing forward as if he will not be a Niner in 2025. And this is different than 2022 when there was that trade request from Debo, and then they ended up signing that contract extension. All was good, and the Niners were able to retain Debo. So it's looking as though a divorce is going to happen between San Francisco and Debo. He is due $17.5 million in 2025. The Niners would absorb a $31.5 million dead cap hit if he were traded pre-June 1. But post-June 1, the Niners would get hit with about $10.5 million of dead money, but then would save $5.1 million in 2026, and then $22.3 million in 2027. So a couple of different avenues in which the Niners could go. They trade him away, they get hit with that dead cap charge, they take it all in at once, and they get draft compensation back, and they say, okay, we'll wipe our hands clean of the Debo situation, and we'll have to eat that money right from the get-go. If you go post-June 1, you're able to spread that money out, but you might not be able to get that draft compensation. Releasing Debo, I think, makes more sense, but are the Niners willing to do that? It makes more financial sense, but you're not going to be able to get that draft compensation back for Debo, obviously, if you release him instead of trading him away. And then lastly here, what free agents should the 49ers retain? Those are also going to be big decisions for this football team as well. The two free agents who I would be fine with bringing back, safety Talanoa Hufanga and linebacker Dre Greenlaw. But Matt Barris of The Athletic reporting that he thinks both of those players are not going to come back in 2025. Why would that happen? Niners aren't willing to give them long-term deals worth a lot of money. And Greenlaw, Hufanga, when healthy, excellent players from other teams. They could land multi-year deals worth more money, and for them at this point of their respective careers, might be better for both of them to leave for that reason. The Niners need to have a plan of attack prior to free agency beginning in March. You have free agency beginning in March, then you have the NFL draft in April. You get all your ducks in a row so that you can crush this offseason and have a big turnaround going into 2025 like the Eagles did after they collapsed after their Super Bowl hangover of a season when they also lost to Kansas City. Be sure to give me a follow, by the way, on X and Instagram at Chase_Senior. Thanks for all of your support. Oh! Slow but sure. A $50 super chat.
Woo!
What's up, guys? Let's go Niners. Slow but sure. Making it rain. Appreciate that $50 super chat. What's up? Hey, we're just talking Niners out here. Trying to put together the best offseason plan of action for this team to get back to championship contention. What's up with you, slow but sure?
Slow but sure. Real one. Out of nowhere. The 50-piece, baby.
Let's go. Appreciate that donation. Awesome stuff. All right, who wants to do some draft talk? Tyrick, what's up, brother? Who wants to do some draft talk? If you want to do some draft talk, type me. Also, Chip, how we doing on questions, my man?
Let's see. We got one more segment and then our mailbag. We need more questions, man. We only got like 3 questions in here so far. We need more, baby. Hashtag 49ers or send in a super chat. You can get your questions in for our mailbag. Big off season, baby. Big off season. I know people got questions to ask. 260 people in here. We can get 10 more questions right now at least before we start this mailbag. But one more segment to go before then. Hashtag 49ers. Make sure it's in your question or else I can't see it.
You heard it from Chip. Hashtag 49ers or send in a super chat to be a part of our mailbag. Get those questions in right now. One more segment until we get to that sack. Dave Zobel, use the hashtag 49ers, man, because that's a great question right there. Hashtag 49ers. I appreciate you adding us and mentioning us, but use the hashtag 49ers, Dave Zobel, because that's a good question and a juicy topic. Lamont, also a good question. It's not hashtag Ken, it's hashtag 49ers. All right, let's do some draft talk here on the show. My top draft targets for San Francisco with the 11th overall pick. Let's do some draft talk here on the San Francisco 49ers Report. My name is Chase Sr. Of course, the 2025 draft coming up in April. So on today's show, I want to take a look at some Niners draft targets, players who San Francisco could take with the 11th overall pick. I really have two dream draft targets for the Niners. Unfortunately, I don't think these players are going to fall to number 11 because I actually think these are the two best players in the draft. I have Abdul Carter 1, Mason Graham 2, Travis Hunter number 3. Abdul Carter, of course, the edge rusher out of Penn State, twitch, bend, size, speed, and ability to just get after the quarterback. And after watching what the Eagles did against the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, it just further clarifies to me, if you get your quarterback, you either have to get an edge rusher or an offensive tackle. Build your team inside out along the trenches. And Abdul Carter's a really special player who, by the way, 2024 was his first season as a pass rusher. He's going to continue to develop and get better. If I'm the Tennessee Titans, I would take him with the first overall pick. Second dream target is Mason Graham. What did Philadelphia also do against Kansas City? Got an interior pass rush against Patrick Mahomes. And there's a theme for taking down Mahomes and all of the best quarterbacks. Back in 2020, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers set a Super Bowl record with 29 pressures of Patrick Mahomes. What did the Eagles do? And by the way, the Buccaneers got pressure with 4 on 16 of those 29 pressures. What did Philadelphia do? They had 25-26 pressures of Patrick Mahomes. They did not blitz once. And so that goes to show you the importance of the defensive line. You can win games solely at times with your D-line, and there is that saying, offense wins you games, defense wins you championships. So I love these two players here. Travis Hunter, he might be the sexy pick. A lot of flash. He's like the Shohei Ohtani of football because he can play on both sides. Wide receiver, cornerback. He's more of a luxury type, though. Abdul Carter, Mason Graham are championship-level pieces. If they were to fall to number 11, or if the Niners can trade up to, let's say, number 5 to get one of those players, I would sprint to get the pick in to Roger Goodell. So those are my dream targets. The more realistic targets, these players right here. Let's start off with Will Campbell. Offensive tackle, LSU. A lot of the conversation around him going into the NFL scouting combine is going to be about his arm length. It's going to be monitored. Is he a tackle? Is he an interior offensive lineman? We will certainly see. That's an unknown. What I know and what I'm confident in, one of the safest offensive linemen in this draft. I think is going to be a very solid player. That's all that we've seen from him while he's been at LSU. 3-year starter at left tackle, gave up 4 total sacks, 13 quarterback hits allowed throughout his LSU career. And in 2024, he was very good. Overall Pro Football Focus grade on 866 snaps of 72.2, pass blocking grade of 80.6. So it's very rare for a player to be a better pass blocker than run blocker. Why? Pass blocking is harder. He was still a good run blocker, grade just under 70, gave up 2 sacks, had 9 penalties. So that overall grade of 72.2, those 2 sacks, the 5 hits, 11 pressures given up, and the 9 penalties, pretty solid numbers right there. And if you do have concerns about him playing left tackle for a right-handed quarterback, maybe you move him to right tackle, which would be a move for San Francisco because they have Trent Williams at left tackle, and then maybe Campbell eventually, as he gets better and stronger, could take over at left tackle once Williams decides to retire. Draft target number 2. If the Niners want to get a premier pass rusher, Mike Green out of Marshall is really climbing up draft boards. He had a stupid productive season in 2024. Led college football with 17 sacks, had 81 tackles, 23 TFLs. He also logged 59 pressures in 13 games, forced 3 fumbles, and recovered 1. Now, you might look at those numbers and say, Chase, he played at Marshall. Yes, there were competition concerns at Marshall. Some people wondering, going into the NFL draft process, how is that going to translate against top-tier competition? Well, he went down to Mobile, Alabama a few weeks ago for the Senior Bowl. He dominated. He dominated so much he didn't play in the actual game. He said, you know what? I'm out of here. I'm going to prepare for the NFL draft. I think his skills translate to the next level. Then you think about Kelvin Banks, the Texas offensive tackle who did play left tackle at Texas, but Steve Sarkisian, head coach for the Longhorns, has a lot of the similar offensive plays and play designs and scheme elements as Kyle Shanahan. So Kelvin Banks would be a pretty good scheme fit for the Niners. Overall PFF grade in 2024 of 86, a pass blocking grade nearly at 90, a run blocking grade of 81. He only gave up 1 sack, did have 7 penalties, missed the SEC championship because of an injury, then came back for the college football playoff. Some people like Campbell over Banks. I like Banks over Campbell, and I think the numbers certainly back that up. If he's there at number 11, going to be a hard player to pass up on. So what say you? Do the Niners need to go offense or defense with pick number 11? Type O or type D? Also, be sure to hit that subscribe button if you want more Niners draft coverage. Put out a lot of draft videos over the last several weeks, but of course, as we approach the draft, really going to start to up the ante in that regard. A player who I really like too along the offensive line is Armand Membou. A lot of people are focused on Campbell and Banks being the top offensive tackle. It would not surprise me if Membou ends up being the best tackle in this draft class. He is not a left tackle. So unlike Campbell and Banks, he wouldn't have to make the switch from left tackle to right. You could plug and play him at right tackle, and I think immediately he would be better than Colt McKivitz. He also might be a guard at the next level, depending on how teams evaluate him. But my goodness, playing in the SEC, going up against some really good opposing pass rushers, he was excellent. Overall PFF grade of 90.4, pass blocking grade of 85.4, run blocking grade of 87.6, no sacks, and only gave up 4 penalties. And so Campbell, Banks, Membou, the order of which they go to start the draft could change, and it's going to be a fluid topic of conversation as we get closer and closer to draft time. Mykel Williams coming in at number 5 out of Georgia. Mykel Williams is an extremely gifted player on a defense for the Bulldogs that was really good and featured a lot of high-level pro players in 2024, and really that has been the case for him and Georgia, over the last few years. And what's crazy about Mykel Williams, he is 20 years old, not going to turn 21 until June. So he's young, but as Vic Fangio likes to say, he might be young by birth certificate, doesn't seem young as a player. Because when you look at this dude play, he just has an NFL body already. 6'5", 265 pounds, 12 games played in 2024, 21 tackles, 9 TFLs, 5 sacks, 26 pressures, 2 pass breakups, and 2 forced fumbles. He has a lot of traits, and he's a really explosive athlete with really good length who can do a lot for your defense. Really explodes out of his stance, and more than 30% of his career tackles resulted in a loss. So anytime that he had an opportunity to make a play, oftentimes he made a really big play. A player who I also really like, who prior to the Senior Bowl was probably looked at as a late first-round pick, who's climbing my draft board and others, is Ole Miss defensive tackle Walter Nolan. He's not just a pass-rushing defensive tackle. His run-stopping grade was north of 90, according to Pro Football Focus. He was an All-American. He's very quick, has a lot of burst, explosion, and violence from the interior. 48 tackles last year for Ole Miss, 14 TFL, 6.5 sacks, 35 pressures, 3 pass breakups so he can leap up, bat some passes down at the line of scrimmage, and 2 fumble recoveries. And in his career, split his time between Texas A&M and then transferred to Ole Miss. There was pretty steady production, and then in 2024, he really broke out. I would not hate if the Niners took him with the 11th overall pick. So who's your favorite Niners draft target? It can be a player who I talked about on the show today, somebody else. Share your ball knowledge with me. One segment left to do.
Shout out to the people, by the way. Great job getting those questions in. We asked, y'all delivered. We got a bunch now.
Awesome.
So
Good stuff. We're going to move forward with our mailbag. So, as Chip said, thanks for all of that. Makes our jobs a lot easier. Helps us create content, and we can chop it up with all of you. Matt Keller, 11th overall pick and Debo to Cleveland for Myles Garrett. I actually think it might take more than that. I think the Browns want 2 1s. At least that's going to be the price that they start with. All right. Mailbag coming up next. Continue to get those questions in. Hashtag 49ers or send in a super chat. If you send in a super chat, you'll jump the line immediately and we'll answer your questions first. Hope everybody out there is having a fantastic weekend. You're watching the San Francisco 49ers Report. My name is Chase Sr., and on the Niners Report Rundown, going to take your questions from our viewers and subscribers going into a huge offseason for San Francisco. And let's start off with the bang here from Dave Zobel. Do you think the Niners can swing a deal for Myles Garrett? I think they can if they want to, but it all comes down to what San Francisco is willing to give up. I think the Cleveland Browns asking price for the 2023 Defensive Player of the Year, a multi-time first-team All-Pro, one of the best pass rushers of this generation, a player who's going to be a member of the All-Decade team once that is determined after the end of this decade, is going to be 2 first-round picks. And are the Niners willing to part ways with 2 first-round picks? Now, maybe that's the starting asking point and asking price for Cleveland, 2 firsts. Maybe you can bump that down to a first and a second. And I know some people will balk at that chase. The Niners have to get younger. They can't give up a couple of first-round picks. But the player that you're going to take at number 11, is he going to be better than Myles Garrett? No. And is he going to be better than Myles Garrett, even best-case scenario, in the long run? I don't think so. Myles Garrett, I still think, has plenty of gas left in the tank. He's coming off back-to-back 14-sack seasons. 29 years old. He will be looking for a contract extension. But think about how Philadelphia embarrassed Kansas City. Great defensive line play. Sacked Patrick Mahomes 6 times, most of his career. Had 25 pressures without blitzing. You get better at defensive tackle. You trade for Myles Garrett. You have Nick Bosa. That's the recipe for being able to stop some of the top upper echelon quarterbacks in the NFL. So I think the Niners can. It just comes down to what they're willing to offer and will they meet the Browns' asking price, which is going to be very high because Myles Garrett is a once-in-a-generation type of player. Ken Dowsland, Debo played like crap, but you know there are some teams that are going to want him. What are the top destinations for Debo? Yeah, so a few teams come to mind, and earlier this week I talked about a few of those teams. New England Patriots want to get another weapon around Drake May. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers make sense. They want a number 2 next to George Pickens. New York Giants want a number 2 alongside Malik Neighbors. I think a team like the Las Vegas Raiders could make sense because even though they don't have a quarterback, they don't have a lot of offensive weapons outside of Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers. I think a team like the Buffalo Bills could be looking at a player like Deebo to get Josh Allen some more help. His physical play also translates in a cold weather climate. The Washington Commanders, they could use another weapon for Jaden Daniels while he's on his rookie contract. You put Deebo next to Terry McLaurin. Or a team like the Houston Texans. You pair Deebo up with Nico Collins, Tank Dell, injured, Stephon Diggs coming off a torn ACL, CJ Stroud still on his rookie contract as well. Those are the teams that come to mind for Deebo. But what are you going to get back for him? I think best case scenario, maybe a third, most likely a fourth. Fernando Caceres, thanks for the question. What if we can trade Deebo to the Steelers and get TJ Watt, plus a couple of picks, obviously? Well, you're not going to get a couple of picks for Deebo while trading him to Pittsburgh for TJ Watt. What you would have to do if you wanted to do that, trade Deebo and picks for TJ Watt. And if that's what you meant, then I can see where you're coming from there. Steelers aren't doing that, though. TJ Watt is a top 5 pass rusher in the game. And Deebo, his value is really plummeted. He's coming off a career worst season in which the tackle breaking numbers weren't there. The separation was not there. The touchdown, yards per catch, targets, receiving yards, all down. Some of the worst numbers of his career. If you were to have traded Deebo this offseason, and he's coming off the 2021 season when he was an All-Pro, you could have gotten a first-rounder for him. Not now, unfortunately, especially for a player like TJ Watt. That'd be a lopsided trade. Should the Niners get rid of Deebo? Y for yes, K for keep. That is today's poll question. So embrace debate and debate it down in the comment section right now. We're going to take more of your questions on the other side, but first, do you have a question about ZBiotics? If that's the case, then I got you. Do you want 15% off at zbiotics.com/chatsports? Cool, we got you too. Use that link or scan that QR code. What is ZBiotics? It is a product that they have to offer pre-alcohol, probiotic, which is what I want to talk about. And it's the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists who tackle rough mornings after drinking. And when you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember, to drink this probiotic before drinking alcohol, drink responsibly, and get a good night's sleep to feel your best tomorrow. First time I tried it was before a watch party a couple of years ago, and as instructed, drank a bottle before any alcohol. I was amazed at how good I felt the next day. Every time I have pre-alcohol before drinking, it makes such a difference the day after. Even after drinks the night before, I know that I'll be able to get after it and continue my running streak and work out. I just tried pre-alcohol back that couple of years ago, and it's just an incredible product. So go to zbiotics.com/chatsports, scan the QR code on your screen right now, get 15% off your order when you use the code chatsports at checkout. You can also sign up for a subscription using our code so that you can stay prepared no matter the time or the occasion. ZBiotics backed with the 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. zbiotics.com/chatsports. Use the code chatsports. Chris Teal, if the Niners lose Dre Greenlaw, would you bring in Khalil Mack? It's a very interesting name right there. Khalil Mack if you lose Dre Greenlaw. Now, different positions, right? Khalil Mack is an outside linebacker pass rusher. Dre Greenlaw is an off-ball coverage linebacker who isn't used as a stand-up edge rusher like Khalil Mack is. I think the conversation is more so if you want to bring in a defensive end and pass rusher, do you just sign Khalil Mack? I don't think it has anything to do with Dre Greenlaw because it's a totally different position. Dre Greenlaw is one of the top off-ball coverage linebackers in the NFL. And Khalil Mack throughout his career, and he's probably going to be a Hall of Famer, has been one of the top pass rushing outside linebackers / defensive ends in the NFL. I think Mack could be looked at as a player who the Niners could sign for cheap if he's willing to take a cheap deal. But I think he's going to go somewhere like Washington, where they can pay him, where they have a bigger need, where he's going to get a lot of playing time and cash. With Niners, he gets some playing time, not as much money. So we'll see what happens with Dre Greenlaw. I'd like to see the Niners bring him back, but I think it's to a point now where another team might be willing to pay him. And according to reports, it's looking as though Dre Greenlaw might not return. Charlie Katzeman. What about Tyler Warren at number 11? He could be the next Kyle Juszczyk at fullback and then the next Kittle at tight end. I'm a Penn State grad and fan. I think this is the best value for two positions. Your thoughts, Chase? Charlie, awesome stuff. My previous job, I covered the Penn State football program, and I grew up in Pennsylvania. So I grew up on Joe Paterno football in the late 90s and early 2000s. And so I always keep close tabs on Penn State. And during the regular season, I put this out on Twitter, and people thought I was insane at the time, that Tyler Warren would be a pretty intriguing option for San Francisco at number 11. It certainly wouldn't fulfill a need, especially when George Kittle comes out and says, yeah, my agent and the Niners were talking about a contract extension. But if the Niners went best player available, I think Tyler Warren, when the 11th overall pick comes around, is going to be the best player available. Now, I more so talked about Tyler Warren under the premise of if the Niners let Kittle play out the final year of his contract and then they let him go after 2025, what a great replacement right here. He has the size of Gronk, the tackle breaking and yak ability of George Kittle, wonderful versatility. He could play H-back, fullback. He lined up under center. He lined up wildcat quarterback. He's lined up inside. He's lined up outside. He is a very, very special player. And if the Niners want to get more physical and add another weapon for Brock Purdy, cost-controlled asset right here, I'm not ruling it out that they take Tyler Warren at number 11 if they want to go more 12 personnel and they want to include some jumbo packages with him and Kittle on the field at the same time. I just think they're not going to go that route because they have bigger positions of importance. Chualor, how can we fix the offensive line and defensive line? Sign Drew Dahlman, the center from the Falcons. You could draft an offensive tackle at number 11 like Kelvin Banks or Will Campbell or Armand Membu. If you go defensive and defensive tackle at number 11, that's how you can address the defensive line. This is a pretty deep defensive tackle class. So you might be able to get a really good defensive tackle in the second round. And if you go defensive tackle second round, I think you go offensive tackle first round, but edge rusher is also a need. So it's going to have to be a mixing and matching, Chua, of what the Niners do in free agency and in the draft. But I would sign center Drew Dahlman, figure out left guard, right tackle in the draft, and then defensive tackle, defensive end, you either do that in the draft and or free agency. Charlie, I feel it would be best to trade the 11th pick and get more draft compensation. Your thoughts? Yeah, I've floated this possibility too, where if you don't love how the board falls, or you don't like the players that you could get at number 11, or you think that you could get a player at number 11 midway through the first, do you trade back and then you get another pick late first, early second, and then you'll have 3 picks potentially inside the top 45. And then you're able to address all of the positions that you need. Offensive line and defensive line. Boom. That's how you rebuild your football club the first 2 days of the draft very quickly. And so it really depends on how the board falls and how the Niners see the board falling and how they see it fit as far as what players are available. But it's definitely something that I would think about. Chris Steele, if the Niners don't get Myles Garrett, how about Trey Hendrickson, who would be a good fit with Bosa? Trey Hendrickson had 17 sacks last year. Number 1 in the NFL. He's 30, Garrett's 29. Over the last couple of years, Trey Hendrickson's been right up there with Garrett as far as sack totals go. And even though he had more sacks than Garrett in 2024, I don't think that he's going to cost as much on a contract extension or cost as much to trade for. And so I think that would be a really good option too. Should the Niners trade for a pass rusher this offseason? We'll fittingly end on that. What say you? All right, 4 segments down just like that. We're going to sign off. Thanks to everybody for watching the show. And that was 4 segments right there in about an hour. So thanks for hanging out here with us. Great coverage to come every single day here on the show. And that's why you hit that sub button. So for Chip, I'm Chase for the Niner gang. We'll see ya.